The opinions expressed in the following program are those of the producer and not necessarily those of WK-TV Community Media.
Hello, West Michigan. This is Grand Tap Media Business TV. My name is Pamela Keim, your host. The spirit of the show is to introduce West Michigan to all the businesses, nonprofits, individuals that can help us thrive in our lives. We have a very special guest for you today. This is part 2 interview with Rachel Steil. She is I guess you're always recovering anorexia. I guess problem, right?
I'm actually fully recovered, but yes, just an eating disorder in general.
This is an eating disorder, but she wrote a book, and that was Running in Silence. She was a cross-country track runner, and when she was going through her anorexia, people didn't notice it because she was supposed to be thin. She was a runner. But anyways, it was her drive for perfection and the eating disorder that fed it. And she is from West Michigan. She is at Granville High School,
Yep.
correct?
Yes.
And you're the head coach for the cross country?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And so she is in the place where all my children graduated. Yeah. So I wanted to put a plug in for Granville. It was a great area to raise your kids, a charmed community. But today we're going to be talking about, in part 2, is we talked about her book, and we will bring that back up, but we're also going to be talking about what people are dealing with today with body image, social media, especially the craze of fasting. That has become the norm to get over difficulty in losing weight. And probably Rachel might be looking at that going, you know what, there could be some red flags there for people like you that are like, oh, this is a good idea to do when you're in your anorexia. So I want to welcome Rachel Steil back. All right, let's talk about, all right, you talked about your book, right, a little bit on it, but let's just go a little bit further on that. You know, where do you want this book to be? Like in doctor's offices? Do you want it be given out at school? Because maybe some friends really don't realize what's happening with their dear friend, their best friend as they call them, their running partner out there. And, but yet they may, when they read the book, like, well, wait a minute. I think this is if you catch it early, right? Mm-hmm. You won't end up like you did. Yeah. Just tormented. So share a little bit. Who is this book for, really? The parent or the person?
It's a little bit for both. Parents, coaches, athletes, anyone struggling with an eating disorder, if this is what their therapist thinks is okay for them to read, because it could potentially be triggering for someone who's deep in an eating disorder.
Right.
It just depends. It's a good conversation to have with a therapist. I know some dietitians have had conversations with the people who are in treatment about the book as they're reading it. It can be a tough read because I do get into the depths of what the eating disorder was like, but I think it also helps anyone who's struggling to be able to feel seen and heard. It can give them a voice. It also helps coaches and parents to better understand what going through an eating disorder is like and how it affects so many other areas, not just the physical part, but also emotionally and socially, and how it was affecting my schoolwork and my running so negatively.
How much were you thinking about food?
Constantly thinking about the next meal, how many calories were in the previous meal, what kind of foods I should be cutting out or adding in. It was constant.
You know, and we all, you hear this. Yeah. There's a fine line between what happened to you than the constant dieting.
Yeah.
Right? And you hear the conversations at parties, and everybody can't wait to tell you their latest diet, what's working for them. And as you shared in our prior interview, which can be seen on YouTube channel and my social media platforms, about, everybody's different. Mm-hmm. What works, you may be able to go, let's example, you may be able to go to Weight Watchers and do very well. Somebody else like me, I couldn't stand counting everything, right? I didn't want to think that much. But what do you say to people? It's like, yeah, but this is different. This is going to be the diet. Especially the newest diet is fasting. Right. Intermediate fasting is the rage. I do it. I will tell you. It has changed my life. What it has done for me is to control. I didn't necessarily have to eat 3 meals a day. I didn't necessarily have to eat, maybe you could go down to 1 meal. And I've seen results, but then you get to anything that you're trying. You're gonna, now all the YouTube help, whatever, YouTube stuff, it's now coming. What happens when you get stuck and you don't reach the level you want on the intermediate? So that's not even the fix for people. What do you think it was? What do you think it is as you've been talking and people coming up to you? I'm reading the comments with your book out there. I'm reading that because it really helps with questions, right? And what do you think? Is it emotional? I know it's emotional, but what do you think? Is it image of today?
Yeah, I would say a lot of people would benefit from going to professionals, even if they don't think they're struggling with an eating disorder. I think if you're dabbling in any sort of dieting or disordered eating behaviors to the point where you are thinking about it more than usual and it's affecting other parts of your life negatively, that could be a sign that there's a possible problem there. It doesn't mean it's a full-blown eating disorder.
Right.
Again, it's a whole spectrum. Things can change over time. It can get worse, but really keen into working with professionals. I think everyone could benefit from meeting with a registered dietitian.
What did you do? What was that? You went to a professional. So when you're sitting there in therapy, what are they trying to get you to what?
With therapy, it was definitely analyzing my huge connection to my sport and what was driving me to constantly actually dabble in a bunch of different diets, because I was really involved in like a fruitarian diet.
Right. I heard that.
Yeah, just a lot of the macronutrients. I was constantly trying to find the one thing that would fix me because I thought I was so broken. And I think a lot of people who try to find a fix with food feel broken, and they feel that.
Do you notice that in the obesity? With that growing, and people now, maybe we're just angry, and it's like, I'm tired of trying to do it this, be that. And then I'm not really sure, but I know that there's an epidemic of obesity. You can't but notice that when you're out in the world, or at least 20, 30 pounds more than they should. Okay, that little there. And girls saying, well, gosh, Rachel, yeah, I'd rather have your problem than my problem. But yet it's just still, are you hearing still the same pain?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pain across the board. And I stress that everyone's situation is so different, and that's why working with someone one-on-one, like a professional, like an eating disorder dietitian, or just a registered dietitian, can be so helpful, because they can look at your life, they can figure out what works best for your situation. And there's a lot coming out from the body positivity movement too, to emphasize that there's so much more to health than just your size, and that if maybe you're working with a dietitian and the way you're eating is actually really healthy and beneficial for you, but you happen to be a different size that maybe others may deem unacceptable, that's just their opinion based on looking at you. But if you really are doing all the things that are right for your body and you're working with the right professionals, I think it's just, everyone's situation is different. And
I know. That's one thing about the eating.
Yeah.
Even being in Granville, we're around a very many churches.
Yeah.
It's known for its churches and parks.
Yeah.
That's what, I don't know what it is today, but that's what it was. All right. Even in the Bible, it talks about in Luke that you don't worry about your food, what you eat and what you drink, the food and I know that, right?
Yeah.
And I think that when I read that verse, I am, and I'm so, I think it's Luke 12:29, and don't be concerned about what you eat and what you drink. To me, I would love that life. I would really love that.
Yeah.
Years ago we did like a workshop, and you had to put what would be a perfect day, right? For you. You wake up, and just trying to see what everybody else wanted their day to be like. Men's were kind of the same, but it was basically the thing is you want to have a great family, right? You wanted to have, money, so you have to think about it.
Yep.
And that you were friends pretty much your day, and your friends and family were coming over for dinner. It was
Yeah.
kind of like the same scenario.
Yeah.
But with women, it was almost like I'm at my perfect weight.
Yeah.
I'm at my perfect size. Guys, not so much, right? But women were all the same. I can eat what I want because I've gotten this under control. I'm not worried about overeating. I was amazed. Got up, I worked out, and I looked amazing. It was always because you had to pick your perfect day. So
Right.
you already had achieved it. Everything was, their battle with food was over.
Right.
That's what I got from every woman when I used to do these workshops.
Yeah.
And they were all the same,
Yes.
even when they were thin.
Yeah.
You know, they were all the same. I was like, it was a different version of, I wanted going off to Hawaii that night,
Yeah.
whatever, things like that. But basically the image saying, are you surprised by that?
A little. I guess I'm sad to hear that, because I have gotten to a point where I'm actually really happy and I don't think about food constantly every day. I actually got to that point that these women strive to be, except it isn't about my body size. I'm at a body size that I didn't want to be at when I was struggling with an eating disorder. But because I have so many other things in my life that I'm really happy with, and I eat enough food throughout the day, I'm not constantly thinking about it, I have reached a point where I'm not concerned about reaching a certain size or thinking about food constantly.
Right.
And that's what therapy and working with a dietitian can do. Again, for at any stage, you don't have to be struggling with an eating disorder to get that kind of help.
When you went to, okay,
yeah.
so since the book has been put out, what has
Yeah.
it? It's been a couple years, 3 years? How long?
5,
5
7
years
Yeah, it's been
already?
a while.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and I know that there's still, you are out, you do speeches, you
Yep.
do, your keynotes,
Yes.
maybe. And then, I see that when I
Yeah.
looked up your stuff and I saw your name come up, Rachel, Georgia. Okay, but we're going to move right to this one. All right. Before we go to the failure lab, because that was an amazing speech you gave, I got to tell you that.
Thanks.
You will have to share, in that speech when I listened to, you have to share this one. 30 bananas a day was a diet you were on.
Yes. Yeah, it was a fruitarian diet. Originally, when I was that first year of college, when I was restricting my food intake, I came across what was called a raw food diet, and it promised total freedom and being at the weight you wanted to be, which is, again, what a lot of women seem to want. And when I was constantly thinking about food every day, I was thinking, okay, this thing will fix me. I'll finally be happy for the rest of my life. I won't have all these running injuries. I'll be able to just perform really well and be at a great weight and eat a bunch of raw food. That doesn't usually include raw meat. I always have to say that.
I know you
too.
say that.
Yeah.
I saw that. I'm like, I didn't think it meant raw meat.
No, it's mostly like
But-
raw fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, which to my eating disorder mind was like, I pretty much eat that way anyway. Why don't we just get on this and do it
This
and
is the perfect, right?
disguise? Yeah, just say, hey, this is a lifestyle, not a diet. That was very much emphasized in these different diets, and you'll probably see that with almost any diet.
Well, 30 bananas a day.
Yeah,
How long did that last?
That was a few months. So the raw food diet started, then I found the fruitarian community, or frugivores. Basically, they eat a bunch of fruit and some leafy greens, but their eye-catching title was 30 bananas a day to get you...
Did it click? Read,
Yeah,
right,
I
right.
was like, okay, well, that would be kind of eccentric and
that's
cool.
pretty,
and
I could feel full on a banana.
Yeah, yeah.
And you were trying to probably figure out how to eat foods to stay that full, because hunger can overwhelm you.
Right, I was constantly hungry, so I thought, okay, I'll finally be able to eat all the fruit I want and be happy and
Not
look
think about
interesting.
this,
I'll have something
right?
interesting about me with this fruitarian. Yeah, so I did dabble into that, and it was rough.
I would imagine it was rough.
Yeah.
But I saw that. All right, so let's talk about, you've been doing speeches. They're able to
Yes.
have people come to their, what are you telling your athletes now that you're the coach? And do they get a copy? Are you asking, is that available?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or are you having those conversations early, saying, you know what, you're going to get in the running and you're going to think, you know what what's your thought?
I've tried to have different conversations over the years and learn again from the eating disorder professionals about how to approach this. And that's part of what we're doing with the Running in Silence nonprofit too, is how do you start having these conversations? How do you look for these things in your athletes? How do you as a coach stay in your role as a coach, but also acknowledge that these difficulties do arise? And each year I've tried to approach it differently. So we have a cross-country camp. We bring up different topics of discussion, including mental health, say that we open the door for anyone who thinks they might be struggling. I've shared a bit of my eating disorder story at some camps without going into full intense detail.
Yeah, you just want to delve in.
Yeah, I think it's
well,
important.
even just focusing on the guys, even working out too much. And I will tell you, when you said that you got finally started breaking down in college, because you became All-American at Aquinas, you know, so, but I can relate to my son when he used to go, went to Eastern Michigan, and he was running 100 miles a week. He broke down. And you know, that was encouraged, and that was, you know, because they had a success track record.
Right.
Okay, so you get to a level of success. I mean, how much running really does it take? And you know, they're finding out more and more that they're overtraining, they're overrunning, they're breaking their body down, because your body is not meant to hit this pound seat. We're not meant to run. You know, not for long periods of time. You do it in a fight or flight or whatever, but it's not really a long-term. But cross country will do that to you.
There are so many other great things that we can focus on. I try to emphasize sleep to my athletes because there are more and more studies coming out about how important sleep is for recovery
and that just came
injury.
out recently.
Yes.
Right? The last, probably 5 or 6 years, the power of sleep. And my son was living on studying, like you were probably, working out. Eating. He never had to worry about food, as opposed to he had to worry about the right food. I wish he would have had Chris's microgreens that he shared with you while we were ready to run the camera. But just the importance of vitamins and not trying to get your vitamins with consumption, but just better food.
Right.
And I'm sure, you know, you're sharing, look, I know that I realize that a lot of this food's available because food is it's basically family. It's friends.
It's social events. It's
how did you handle that when you, everywhere you went? Let's do lunch. We're gonna order pizza. But your age, right? We're gonna do this. What did you do to? I can't do that. You know.
Well,
you said you isolated yourself, so you didn't go to the.
I did. That was different about my eating disorder because I feel like a lot of people usually just avoid those kind of situations. I so badly wanted to connect with my teammates. And so I wanted to be there, but I would always order my own new type of dish, or I'd eat right before we all went. So I found ways around it. And there will be some people who will do something like that, where they bring their own special food to an event that has nothing to do with any allergies they have, but it's just because they want to stick to this certain diet.
Is that alarming at 18?
Definitely at those younger ages, I would think so. I've seen a lot from intuitive eating dietitians too. They talk about being able to eat whatever you want, you know, while also working with the health benefits of different foods. Eating really nutritious foods, but also allowing yourself to have that flexibility, because otherwise you're not able to enjoy those other experiences, those other foods. I eat whatever I want at this point in my life, and I've never been so happy, but I also have that balance between all the really nutritious foods that I enjoy.
Is it bad to say you look fabulous?
Oh, thank you.
Is somebody like you that get compliments could lead? You don't understand what I'm saying?
I do, and I can see that where people would want to give that compliment. I think what looks nice about me, if that makes sense, is I feel like I'm glowing. I feel like I'm vibrant. I could have been the same weight deep in my eating disorder and not looked as great because I was so sad. I didn't have a smile on my face constantly. Like, I feel like our personalities kind of show through our bodies, and maybe if we stress recognizing someone looks great in that way, they look happy, that feels almost better. And I did get those kind of compliments later down the road as I was recovering, that people said I looked really happy. And that meant more
you
to
were
me.
glowing when I walked in. And I was expecting you to, to look, but I wasn't expecting you to do just, I guess, perky.
Yeah. Yep.
And as I would want to put it with the youth, I always love it when they're full of life.
Yeah.
Right, that you've really come over that. So share a little bit with the book, the success of the book, being a local. Tell us what you've been. I saw that you were, you've been interviewed a lot.
Yes.
So what's going on?
Yeah, I always wanted to write a book about running. I just didn't think it would turn into a whole book about running and an eating disorder.
Once again, tell them what book it is.
Yeah.
So I don't have to put my glasses on.
Yeah, it's Running in Silence, My Drive for Perfection and the Eating Disorder That Fed It. It's available on the runninginsilence.org website and Amazon. It's been available since 2016, but I updated it in 2020 with a new version. There's not a bunch of new stuff in there, but it just needed some updates, and it has a lot of like questions and prompts at the end of chapters for anyone who might be struggling or someone who wants to help someone who's struggling to think more about it beyond just the story.
Right.
And that book is what propelled me into the speaking world. I thought, okay, if I'm going to be an author, I better be okay public speaking. And I thought that since high school, because like I said, from a young age, I loved writing. I wanted to be an author.
Okay.
And so once I had the book out, I was like, okay, I guess I better be talking about this. And having dealt with the eating disorder in the way that I did, I didn't see enough conversation happening about it, especially with the binge eating side of things.
I think you can hide it in cross country.
Yes.
Because you figure you're running all that. How much do you run now?
I don't run, unfortunately. No, I ended up, my kneecap broke in college, and I had to have 2 surgeries for that, and my kneecap just hasn't been the same since.
Is it because you didn't even?
It possibly could have
broke down your body, and
with
the not eating enough calories as you were running.
Right.
We all know that.
Yes, and so bone breaks are somewhat common for people who are not
Stress
taking enough
fractures,
calories.
all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and just if you're not feeding yourself well and taking care of your body overall, you're more prone to injuries. Yes, that definitely could have played a role in it. So
well, now we get more and more people that are coming out with the research about, not going to that length, that it's bad for your body. Maybe doing that once a week as opposed to every day.
Yeah.
Never giving your body a break.
Right.
Like when you're a cross country runner, you're running in the summer.
Yeah.
You're running, and if you go for distant track, you're running. My son, when he was in college, he never got a season off. He was always running.
Yeah.
And it was, and he thrived on it until the injuries hit.
Yep.
And then it was almost like he got almost to the point where he's getting close to where he wanted to be, and I was in stress factor.
Yes.
He was anemic because he wasn't eating the right. It's a lot on your body. I think years, and you know that.
Yeah.
On that one.
Yeah.
And what about when do you try to convince some of your cross country? I know you want to reach this level. Like you said, you're going to bring up more sleep.
Yes.
Recovery. I didn't realize how important it would have been to get my son to sleep 2 more hours.
Yeah, if you can't recover, you're not able to bounce back, and you can't improve quicker over time too. So those all play a role, and it's really important to emphasize all parts of running, not just food or not just the mileage. It's so much more than that, and who they are as people and teammates. Because if you're a happy person, your mental health is at a good place, you're likely going to perform better too.
Let's talk about Failure Lab.
Yes.
I saw your speech on YouTube. You did an amazing job.
Thank you.
Share a little bit of what it took to, how long was it? I know how long it was, but what did you have to do to get?
Yeah, they told us we had 5 minutes to talk about something where we failed in life, and that's really tough because you want to end with a very successful part of what happened and make people feel better. But I did somewhat fail in running, and I felt I failed my family and my friends and my coach, my teammates. And so I had to dig into that a bit and get a little emotional. And I basically told pieces of my story in that talk. And moving forward, I was able to also address it in the talks to coaches and athletes. And I feel there is a better connection when you're able to talk about the tough parts too and help people to really understand what goes on in an eating disorder. Because as we've said time and time again, it's not just an outward appearance, it's what is going on in your mind. And I felt I was able to convey that in Failure Lab and the talks I do for Running in Silence.
Yeah, and for the audience, Failure Lab it's like a platform like TED Talk. Look it up. You will find, and it was hard to listen to your story without a happy ending. You just leave people hanging.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And I was like, I was listening, and all of a sudden I'm going, oh, that's right, this is failure.
Yeah.
This isn't TED Talk.
Yes.
Where there's a happy, or there's a go-to, or, you know, why don't you, like an action plan.
Right.
Was your parents there?
Yep. Yeah, they were pretty emotional about it too. But
Is it hard for them to hear you talk?
it can be. I think they've gotten to a place where they see the good we're doing now. They're actually on the board for the Running in Silence nonprofit, so they're very supportive, and they know, okay, this was a problem. What can we do going forward to start addressing these issues, help people to understand ways in which they can get help and start that recovery process, and see that recovery from an eating disorder, it's going to be tough, but I mean, at least I've gotten to a place where I feel I'm the happiest I've ever been. And
great.
yeah, and
You
other
look
people
happy,
can get there. Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But we did tap in, or did we talk about what does
Yeah.
it do, runninginsilence.org do?
Yes. So
We did?
like it
Okay.
started with a book, and then I put the organization together to be able to have these speaking engagements because I wanted to reach coaches and athletes or just the general public about eating disorders, talk about the misconceptions, how we can start helping someone get the help that they deserve, what that looks like, get a bit into my story. I use my story to help people understand it better and also make it interesting. We really focus on making it engaging. I don't want people just sitting there just getting a bunch of facts about eating disorders. While those are important, we want people to be interested in learning more about eating disorders and get help or help someone else get the help that they deserve.
And I do believe what was intriguing. Well, first of all, I knew you.
Yeah.
I knew your family from Granville. But the one thing I thought, relating the anorexia or the eating disorder to performance.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard that before. I've heard people wanting to be perfect, wanted to have this image. They wanted to reach their favorite weight. Like if I got down to 110, that would make me happy. I never really saw a speech where people were talking about how it enhanced their performance in playing sports.
Yeah.
Which you got a lot of accolades. I know that throughout. I know you from Granville, but it was so different. And all of a sudden, seeing how I knew how you grew up and being around runners, I thought, wow. And I thought you were so lucky to have your mom who was a runner.
Yeah.
There training you, which I wasn't able to do for my son because I was not a runner.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, see, that explains why Rachel. But not realizing that you were doing stuff besides like taking steroids. You weren't taking steroids.
Yeah, no.
Like you hear other people, but you know what I mean.
Yes.
You were being tortured. But okay, so I'm gonna wrap this up, and we're gonna have you talk right into that one. And how can people reach you? Where can they find the book? I know you mentioned it in part 1.
Yes.
And what the book is meant to do? Is it to the parents, the coaches, what?
Yeah, the book is Running in Silence. You can find it on the website runninginsilence.org or on Amazon. And the book essentially details my journey with an eating disorder through anorexia and binge eating and all these different diets I was trying at the time, with the focus of how did the recovery process look like? How did it look like to start talking to other people about it? And it has prompts within the book for coaches to understand more about what they can do to maybe help their athletes or someone who's struggling to start thinking about their own experiences, so it can fit any kind of audience in that arena. And then the runninginsilence.org website is where we talk about eating disorder misconceptions. We mostly speak to athletes and coaches, to people who are just learning about eating disorders and want more insight. And we've been speaking at a lot of coaching clinics across the country, a lot of schools, colleges, and universities.
I want to thank Rachel Steil for
Thank
being
you.
here today. It's been a pleasure to reconnect with you.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing your mission. You can check out where you can find Rachel. This is Pamela Keim from Grand Media, and we will catch you next week. Take care, everyone.
The opinions expressed in the preceding program are those of the producer and not necessarily those of WKTV Community Media.